Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
I'm Steve Rother, and I channel the group.
I'm Barbara Rother, and together we present our work from the group and spread light throughout this world.
When I was growing up, I can't say that there were people that had the same gift that I have. However, there were very spiritual people. There were people that really connected. They focused it more toward religion at that time. And I was raised in a household that was considered to be Methodist. And I envisioned myself as being a Methodist minister someday. So I kind of grew up with that perception. As things went forward, it evolved in quite a different way, obviously.
As a child, I was raised Catholic, and I value that information that I learned. I think it really helped form who I am today. Although I don't follow the Catholic religion anymore, it was a good base to start out with. And it definitely led to my spiritual path.
You know, I met Barbara when I was 16. I fell in love with her in the hallway at our high school. And I had a band at the time, and she was in a singing group at the time. So our band was looking suddenly for a girl singer, and we auditioned her singing group to be part of the band. And there was a girl with a really strong band voice, and then there was Barbara. And although Barbara had an absolutely beautiful voice and still does today, we ended up hiring two different singers because I had a crush on her. And that was the beginning of something that lasted all this time so far. We've been able to build on it. We just celebrated 45 years of anniversary.
We definitely have a special connection, one that I feel so blessed to have. As so many people we talk to want to have a relationship, find that person who is their one person to be with all the time, to share everything with. And, you know, I like to say there's togetherness in our, with everything we do, but yet we know when to give each other space.
There's space in our togetherness.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Yes. As I grew up, I found that I had a need to create. And generally I would do anything creative on the side while I had a job. And I finally ended up being in construction because it was very creative. Built a lot of cabinets, did a lot of remodels for banks and stores and things of that nature. And I enjoyed my work. But I lived in a totally different world than I live now. Every other word was 4 letters, and literally it was a totally different space than I live in. And then one day, Barbara dragged me to one of her events that was kind of spiritually based, which I was kind of going, okay, honey, we'll go with your time this time. And New Year's Eve, I went to one of her events, and I got tapped on the shoulder, and it changed my life forever. I was never able to go back after that day. And I had an experience where the group started coming into me. And it took a while for me to ground, for me to really feel what that was like and find an expression for that and be able to use it. And our lives changed from that point. Literally, I ended up closing the business, moving in a totally different direction, not knowing where we were going, quite scary. It tested every area of our relationship, the financial, the relationship between the two of us, our family, every other part of it. But we ended up in an awesome place with it. And we get to actually work together today. It's wonderful.
Yes, I was really into my spiritual path. I found a way to express that through Church of Religious Science, very non-traditional compared to being a Catholic religion. And I felt something stir within me, and I was so into it. But Steve wanted nothing to do with it because he'd had enough church. So he would take care of our children when they were small, and I would go to church. And I was so into it that I was learning how to be a practitioner in the church. Mm-hmm. And that's the event that we went to on New Year's Eve. And then on New Year's Day, he was tapped on the shoulder, and that was quite a birthday present because January 1st is his birthday. And so the group gave him quite the present.
Yeah, it's fascinating how it happened because obviously I was in construction. I wasn't the person who was ever going to be carrying that information, and it was really surprising to me. I had a real difficult time with it, and I found another group of people online. And I was able to kind of communicate with them. And they were all channeling, they were all talking to their guides, and they were all getting their guides' names and what level of dimension they were from. So I asked my group, because I started all of a sudden having this voice on my shoulder that was constantly in my ear. Not just when I channeled, but all the time. And I asked him one day, I said, well, I'm going to share my story with this group of people online. So tell me where you're from, what your names are, and what level of dimension you're in. And they came back and we said, we have 3 answers to your questions. It's none of your business, it's none of your business, and it's none of your business. And quite honestly, I got into fear at that point because I had somebody said, if your guides won't identify themselves, they're the bad guys. And literally I went to the group and I said, if you're not going to identify yourself, I can't channel you. And they said something to me that I'll never forget. They said, we honor all of your choices. And they were quiet. I literally lost it. Now, for the next couple of days, I was walking around and dumbfounded. I'm walking into walls, very frustrated, not knowing what to do. I thought it's kind of like I had a fish on the line there and I couldn't bring it in. I had to let it go. It was very frustrating for me. So finally, I got smart and I asked the group, I said, knock, knock, are you still there? And they said, yes, of course, we've never left you and we never will. And they said, I said, well, if you can't tell me who you are, tell me why you can't tell me who you are. And they said, now you've asked a very interesting question. And they said, we believe that humans tend to give their power away to way too many things, especially labels. And we're going to give you information, and we're going to ask you to bring it through and present it to the world without the labels. And because of that, we're more interested in your empowerment than trying to look up to us or value us in some way. It's not about us, it's about you. And that's where they came from. Now, interestingly enough, they never did give me a name. And I started channeling the information to this group that was online. And they started asking questions back. And they said, who is it? What level of dimension they from? What's their names? All the things that they would ask. And I said, I don't know. And furthermore, I'm not going to know. And people would say, I said, the one thing I can tell you is it's not a single entity. It seems to be a group of people. And people would come back to me and say, okay, what does your group say about this? And that's where the name of the group came from. It was literally a default answer because the group did not want to identify themselves for us to give power to any labels, but to start carrying that power within us and to discern every message for the love content of the message itself rather than some label that was put on it.
It was not easy at all at first because I didn't know, even though I felt I was a spiritual person, at that point in my life, I didn't know anything about channeling. And, you know, that Catholic upbringing, those old tapes began to play. And I said to Steve, I said, you think you're channeling spirit, you're hearing, you know, special messages. I said, in my idea, only saints hear spirit talking, and you're no saint. But, you know, it was scary because it seemed like our whole lives were being tossed up in the air to see how they would land. And it did test every part of our relationship. But deep inside, and I think this is the first time I heard my own guidance, something told me, this strong voice said, let him go and develop this and see where it takes him. And so I told him, I said, you know, I don't know why, because I'm the person that wants you to have a real job with benefits and steady income.
Yeah,
we have
a
a
list
family.
of all the things
yes,
you wanted,
a family to support. But I said, I don't know why, but I have a job. I have the benefits. You need to go and do whatever is calling you. And that trust has been with me all my life. And shortly after that, I saw how much fun he was having with this work, if you call it work, his passion. And I said, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to join you.
And my mouth dropped open immediately when you're what? You're quitting your job? Because it was basically our baseline at that point. And you know what happened? The money just took care of itself. It all made up very quickly. The work started growing. We started making enough to support us, and everything just stepped into it. Absolutely.
And definitely over the years, it has developed in different ways. And we couldn't be happier the way our life is going. We are both living in our passions. His passion, my passion, together we share that. And it makes life beautiful.
They basically said, they told me from the beginning that they chose me for a reason. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, I had a friend of mine, when I started channeling, I had a friend of mine come to me and say, I want to take you to see this channel because this channel is a perfectly clear channel. And she doesn't even remember what she talked about. She wakes up afterwards and we have to tell her what she talked about. So she's perfectly clear. The human's not involved at all. And she's perfectly clear for spirit. So we went to see that person. And afterwards, I was very impressed. It was a nice lady and she did some really good channeling. And afterwards, I asked the group, I said, do you want me to do that? Do you want me to be just completely step out and not be there at all and not interfere with the channel at all? And they laughed, which they always do. And they said, no, we chose you because of your history. Because we literally use the things that are in your brain. We use the experiences that you've had to help you communicate and bring our message to the world. So we chose you because of who you are, and we don't want you stepping aside. We want you blending with us. And they even said at that point, they said, you call us the group. Well, you're a member of the group, and you're the translator. And we want you to translate this message with your own history. We'll ask you to keep your own personal beliefs out of it, but simply bring through as much of the truth of this, the base truth, as you can. And that's what we started working with. But why me? I've never figured it out, but I am a match for this. I love this work. I'm absolutely a match for it. Later on, many years later, actually only a few years ago, the group started coming out as singularities. So instead of talking in this collective voice of the group, which they still do, they started talking in singularities, almost like personalities. One of them was Ilra. One of them is the keeper of time. One of them is Merlia, who's the feminine aspect of Merlin, and so forth. So they started coming out in these different aspects. And one of them told me, you and I have played this game together so many times, and that's Ilra. And he says, he says, we have danced together so many times that we are best of friends. And that's why you're chosen. That's why we chose you to help bring this message through.
Well, Steve has always had an ability to to help people. He's the person ever since I've known him, since he was 16, where people would come to him with their problems, and he would have answers. So I think this ability, I think the group's been with him for a very long time.
That's what they said.
And he is quite the interpreter. When he brings forth this message that the group is sharing, I am in awe. I listen to him, and I know he's a great man, but this spirit, this message that comes through him is just amazing. And when I first began this work with Steve, my role was, I said, I'm going to be in the background. I'm not going to speak. I'm just going to do registrations at the seminars and be very quiet, because I was pretty shy back then. And I eventually, like I said, over the years, developed more who I was and the role I was going to play. And now we do this dance together, where we so enjoy. Steve brings forth the message, and then I bring in the human aspect and saying, well, this is what the group is really saying.
That's true. She interprets it in a different way. It's very magical.
And at first, I did joke about it, since I was on my spiritual path at the time the group came to him, and he wasn't. I said, how come the group chose you and not me? And he laughed. He says, you know what? The group says, what makes you think they didn't choose Barbara? They chose both of us.
Actually, somebody asked that in front of a very large group of people in Holland.
That's
there
right.
was several hundred people there, and somebody asked that during a live channel, and the group said, what makes you think we chose Steve? Maybe we chose Barbara.
But the truth of the matter is that they chose both of us. We know that because we're a balance together in this work. And together we can bring forth information that's so important to connect with people, to give people hope, and to spread light all over this world.
Channeling is fascinating to me. In the beginning, it was so mysterious. And 21 years ago, when I started channeling, it was a word. It was kind of like a dirty word. It was a word you only told people that would understand. You're not going to tell people you're a channel. I'll never forget that. I was on an airplane one time, and Barb and I got separated. She had to sit in the back, and I'm sitting up here with a lady next to me and her family right in front of us. So she's talking to the family and so forth, and I'm just trying to hide on my computer and do my work and do things. And she kind of included me at one point and started talking to me a little bit. And she said, and what do you do? Where are you going? And I said, well, I'm a channel. I tried it out. I said, I'm a channel. And I talked to entities from the other side of the veil. And she turned away and didn't look at me the rest of the trip. And I felt really bad at first. And this was a long time ago. This is 21 years ago. And then I realized, I'm on my way to Vienna to talk at the United Nations for the third time. What do I have to be ashamed of? And I felt so much more empowerment, and I just ended up channeling a whole lot about that on my computer rather than talking to her or the other people. But it really gave me a sense of self-confidence at that time to be able to think, thank you for letting me carry this message, and now I don't care what people think of me. Now today, channeling is much more accepted. It's used in common usage quite a lot, especially with people talking about actors. Actors are now channeling this entity that they're studying or trying to play. So literally, we're using the word in a whole different way. It's much more accepted. It's much more possible. But what is it? The group says we all channel, and we always have. We call it different things. Over here, the photographer gets inspiration. He tries to capture his channel with a camera. Over here, the artist gets an inspiration and tries to create that with their pens and pencils or their paintbrush. And over here, the musician tries to bring that through that they're hearing very clearly into something that they can play on their guitar or their music. And some of us channel spiritual messages. That's where I'm tuned in. We're all tuned into different things. But I do believe we all have the gift. We tune into different processes around it. Some of us have contracts, like I do, to bring this message in, to be a part of this. I think that's what I was being prepared for all my life. Now that I look back, I can see that was happening. At the time, it didn't look like that, but obviously that's what was building up. But I do believe we all have this gift. And we call all inspiration, the group says, comes from the same place. And the hardest part about channeling is trusting it. Because even if you get this beautiful message, to trust yourself to speak that out loud takes practice. And that's what I'm getting good at.
Definitely. You know, a long time ago, someone asked me, they said, well, you're always near Steve in the group. You're right next to him when he's bringing forth this beautiful message. Do you channel as well? And I used to say, oh, no, not me, not me. He has the gift. I don't channel. But then I began to realize, of course I channel in my own way. That's why my part of the work is called Connecting the Heart, because I feel like my channel comes from my heart. It's when I have the right words that come out, it's like my heart feels warm inside. And it's just connecting with people, and I love that. It's such a wonderful feeling to be able to help somebody. We all learn from each other. Right. And everyone can channel, like you said, in their own way. And not everybody's going to be up on stage doing it like we are. They can touch people in different ways. Someone who does your hair at a beauty salon, they're some of the greatest channelers out there. That's because right. People open up to them about their problems and they talk. We have a good friend who is a magnificent channel in that way. And we try to encourage people every day to touch their own way of channeling and trust and practice it, because they can come out with their own message of the truth.
The challenge about it a lot of times is that we try to apply the old rules about learning something. We recently got a piano. Now, if somebody wants to play a piano, you know perfectly well you're going to sit down and you're going to hit a lot of wrong notes. So you allow yourself to do that. And you say, oh, okay, I'll get better. And the more you play, the less you hit those wrong notes, and the better it sounds. Well, that doesn't usually take place with channeling. When channeling happens, because it's spiritual, people judge themselves, and the first time they interpret something incorrectly, they say, oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And they back off rather than practice and allow themselves to practice that, to make that mistake, and to learn to trust the channel coming through them in that different way. Well, that's a real challenge, because what you're doing when you try to validate a channel is many times it's not about specifics. It's about the feeling. And that's really what we're bringing through. We're bringing through ideas, concepts, empowerment, different processes where the person can trust themselves. Now, if we try to go to validation, now you're taking it out of the spiritual realm and you're bringing it into the scientific realm. And although the two often try to approach the same thing, they're different aspects entirely. One works on complete facts, proven only, and one works on complete feelings only. And that's what I channel. I channel the feeling side of it. I am not a scientist. And furthermore, we don't have the validations I get are not saying that, oh, thank you for helping me find that thing that my dead brother hid in the drawer or something of that nature. My validations come from when people call me a year, 2 years after having a private session, after hearing a channel, and say, it worked out exactly as you said. Thank you so much for helping me see my way clear to make that decision. That's my validation.
I think that we get validation about our work every time that we present. It is so true, and it's amazing how he can talk about something, bring forth information in a channel, and then we'll hear it in the news or in a magazine is saying that this has happened just like he said it would, and you have to have that trust, because if you doubt yourself, you're going to be afraid to speak the words. And Steve is very good about trust. And the conversations that we have about what the group is saying and where it's going to help this world are just so interesting and fun. It's a dream come true that we're able to work together and to bring forth this information.
Also, on the validations, if I can just add that, the group is that we do a lot of predictions. We do a lot of, every month we do a prediction seminar to kind of say what's coming up in the next month. But it's very clear, when the group wants to make it very clear, we are not actually predicting the future. We're showing you the way things are going at this moment, because it's all about our empowerment. It's not about them telling us what's going to happen. That is taking our power from us. They want to give us our power. So sometimes they'll even show us things like a volcano that's getting ready to erupt, or some situation and social aspects that's taking place that we can have an effect on. And by focusing our energy on that, we can change it. And that's even better than trying to predict the future or validate exactly that I'm channeling this and this is perfect and this is where it's coming from. They equate it to the double-decker bus. They said, you're driving the bus. Now the group can get on the upper deck and they can see a little further down the road than you can. But they can't tell you which way you're going to turn. And that's the way I would like to put it.
Well, our work is all about empowerment. The name Espavo means thank you for taking your power. And that's what we try to encourage everyone, including ourselves. We remind ourselves of the power that we hold. And you can change your reality. Sure, it may look like a situation is going one way, but we have everything in our power, in our thoughts, to guide it in the different direction if we so choose. And it is truly an amazing journey when we stand strong and decide what we want to have our life be like. I think we use the teachings every day. Speaking for myself, I know I do. When we are presenting a seminar, I tell the people who are listening to us, this isn't something we're just teaching you. We learn every time that we present. The group makes us experience everything that we're talking about.
And a lot of times you'll share a personal experience of exactly what we're teaching, how you failed at something or how we tried something and it didn't work. So a lot of times we're sharing those experiences as well.
Right. If we can be vulnerable and share that with everybody else, people see that we're all in this together. We're all going through these experiences, these challenges, these life lessons that we're being faced with. And by Steve and I sharing how we are humans just trying, like all of us, to learn and to grow and to stand in our power again, then yes, we live and breathe this work that we're doing.
Don't put us on a pedestal.
No, nobody should be. That's a thing of the past. It used to be that we would look at leaders and we would just aspire to be like them and put them beyond reach. Now we are as powerful as anyone. We're all the same. We just lead our lives a little differently and spread our light in our own way.
It's interesting. My family was extremely open. I dedicated my first book to my father. I basically said that he was a light worker ahead of his time. He, like many people in this industry, tried to do things that I tried to do. He took me out to lunch just before he died, and he tried to talk me out of doing it. He says, we've got friends of mine that all have PhDs in psychology that have tried to do what you're doing. It's not worked. He opened the Center for Conscious Relationships in San Diego. He wanted to do things differently. He wanted to be a teacher himself. He wanted to do a lot of these things. Was never able to get the support, the financial support, or even the emotional support to do a lot of it. So when literally just before he died, he tried to kind of talk me out of it a little bit to bring me at least a realistic view of the things that I was stepping into. And he actually knew them. And I think just before he died, we were actually invited to speak at the United Nations for the first time in Vienna, Austria. We ended up presenting 5 times at the United Nations, 3 times in Vienna and twice at the headquarters in New York. And I think that gave him permission to go. I think he felt okay with it at that point, and he knew we were going to be okay. Why did it work for me and not for him? I don't know. But I do believe that he opened a lot of the doors. So today, my family does not read my books. They don't generally watch our broadcasts. They don't generally, although sometimes they'll check in, they'll see things that are going on, but they're not big followers of the group. They grew up with me. I was little Stevie. I'm not their teacher. And that's the way it should be with a family. But they honor it. And they often remind me that this is what Dad taught.
Exactly. You know, our family, they may not understand what we do or follow our work, but they highly respect us.
Sure.
And they see how much joy our work has brought to us. And so they've always been encouraging and proud of us. They may not know how to explain it to their friends or anybody else.
Tough for them to explain sometimes.
But they will brag about us, how we travel and talk to people. And I do know that we have their respect. My family was not as open as Steve's was. But my brother, he has told me, "You're doing good, Barb." Does he understand it? No. I don't think so, but that's not important. He's on his own path. But you know what? If somebody doesn't understand your passion for spreading the light, they can just see how happy you are, and then they'll know that you're doing something right in your own life.
Yeah, I think there's a huge connection in my family as well, because we basically all grew up with certain principles of truth. We focused it a lot because we grew up in a religious community and religious areas. We focused it a lot on the religion, but it wasn't about the religion. It was literally about the truth and how we learned to live that type of energy. And that step into that was absolutely wonderful. I'll never forget the first time we went to St. Louis. And the funny part about this is Barbara has a brother by the name of Steve who lives in St. Louis, and I have a sister by the name of Barbara who lives in St. Louis. And neither one of them really followed much of the work. And the first time we went to St. Louis and actually did a seminar, both of them came to that seminar to kind of check us out, what was going on. And it was really impressive. They were both very impressed. We filled the place. It was a couple hundred people that showed up, and it was really nice, and they were all impressed with the work we did. Not following the work, not quite understanding what this channeling thing was all about, but seeing that it was accepted and that we were able to empower people in different ways.
I remember that seminar because we were standing by the front door as people were coming in for the event. And everyone was greeting us and going, "Oh my gosh, Steve and Barbara, how wonderful to see you." And it was so honoring. And my brother, he's my older brother, and I'm the little sister. And he turns to me and he says, "Barbara, all these people are coming to see you?" And so that just told me that sometimes family will only see you as they knew you, as in their own eyes. They don't see they see you who you were, not who you are becoming.
And that's what family is supposed to be. So that's fine. They hold our image of who we were when we were growing up and that beautiful part that we built on. So that's perfect.
Yes.
And I'll never forget, my sister took her name tag and she took her last name and in between put Rother really big on there because she used to be Barbara Rother before you were.
She was proud to have the same last name as him.
Yeah, exactly.
And I have to say, when we're talking about family, it just warms my heart when I see how our two sons turned out.
Yeah, that's true.
They are very spiritual. They're beautiful, sensitive, young men that are just carrying their own light in their own way, and we couldn't be more proud of them. It makes us feel like we did something right.
One of them works with us in the process, and the other one works as a mechanic. And even though he's in a different type of arena, you wouldn't call him a channel. He's kind of the intuitive mechanic, isn't he?
Yes.
He's kind of the person that channels cars because he's really good at what he does.
He just knows where there's a problem.
So it's amazing. They use the same gifts, again, in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most important message of the work right now is to step into your power. We all have incredible power, and we confuse power. We confuse power because we've been living in this masculine-dominated world where power meant force. Power truly means harmony. It's that connection with everything that we can combine in different ways. We're seeing the feminine rise at incredible rates on this planet right now and take the place to balance this energy. And that's the most important thing. We're also focused on me. How am I going to fix me? How am I going to better my path in some way? When in reality, we can start focusing on, instead of looking at the ways we are different, to start looking and focusing on the ways that we are alike. That is probably the biggest thing that all of us can move forward in. We're in a new world. We've stepped into the fifth dimension. We're learning how to work with that. The rules are totally different than the third dimensional reality we've stepped out of. And we're all fighting with it. We're all trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Because the same thing that used to work just a short time ago doesn't seem to work anymore. And we're all stepping into it. If we focus on that unity, that's the biggest key that all of us can work on right now. And that leads us into individual as well as collective empowerment.
Definitely. I think a very important part of our work, especially now, is encouraging people to be balanced with their feminine and male side. No matter what gender you happen to be, you have both those female and male energies within. And when you can combine them, then you feel totally centered in who you are. And I encourage people in our work, we both do, be in your passion. Even if you don't know what that is, whatever excites you, makes you want to get up in the morning and get to it, whatever it is. That feeling that you're happy and that your light is shining with a smile on your face and the brightness in your eyes. That's being a light worker. And that's what we encourage everybody to do.
The hardest part is trusting yourselves. We do believe that everybody has come here with a purpose. The group says there's nobody on planet Earth that's just taking up space. No matter what your direction, no matter what your path is at this moment or another, you have something important that you brought. Be prepared to trust it, find it, step into that passion, express it in some way, perfect it, practice it, and work with it. Because we need every one of you right now, more than anything, more than any time else on this planet.
So many people are going through such incredible challenges nowadays, even more than ever before. And just know that these are things that come our way to teach us our life lessons. Everybody's here for a reason, and that's to grow as a person. If we knew it all and had it all conquered, then we would go home. So enjoy living through the struggles, through the joy, because that's who you are as a human being. And don't ever feel alone. That's what I really want to tell people, because you have your spiritual family all around you. And when you hold hands, you can move forward in a beautiful, magical way.
Greetings, dear ones. We greet you at a very special time on your journey on planet Earth. We tell you humanity has reached a certain level. It's getting very exciting during these times. We wish to be here to nurture you, to tell you you're right on target, to help you understand your path and the many things that are still ahead. You are doing something absolutely amazing on planet Earth. What you don't remember is that you're all part of us. You're all part of each other as well. You're playing the game of pretending to be separate, pretending to be a human. And that you have gotten very good at. The art of separation has been huge on planet Earth. And to some ways, that has served you well. But now you're starting to move in a whole different direction. You're starting to live in a collective dimensionality of the fifth dimension. And that is changing everything. Amazingly enough, you've played this game so far, well in the third dimension. Let us briefly give you an overview of those dimensional realities. That is the collective dimension that all of you live in, kind of a base for the game that you are playing. In the beginning, you were all connected. You were all home. You're all part of us. And that is unity. That was the first dimension. In order to play the game of pretending to be separate, you had to move through the second dimension. The second dimension imprinted you with the imprints of duality, gave you contrast so that you could see one person to the next, so that you could see yourself as different from each other instead of the same. And it gave you the perfect imprints to land in the third dimension and play the game of a spirit pretending to be human. You've done very well with this game. What we tell you, dear ones, is that you have won the game. In truth, not long ago, you moved the whole collective into the fifth dimension. And in doing so, you passed through the fourth dimension. And again, not living there, but picking up certain imprints, certain attributes, certain things that you will use to move forward now, to evolve spirit even further than you have done before. The connections are incredible. We encourage all of you to step into that passion. That's when you become the highest use to the universe that you can be. That's when you become the highest aspect of your spirit in the dense physical bubble of biology that you inhabit. The connections are incredible, and they're growing. Now, in the fifth dimension, even though you've been imprinted with the fourth dimensional attributes, most of you still don't know you've moved. It happened very quietly to some. It happened around the 12-12-12, and we tell you it was exciting for us to watch. And yet today, most of humans and the humanity experience altogether is still wrestling with this. You see more division today on your planet than ever before, especially in recent years. And that's partly because most people are still trying to use the third dimensional attributes that they have learned as successful in the fifth dimension. And it creates a huge amount of frustration because they don't work the same. And all of you are wrestling with those attributes of learning the new ways. And you think, well, something has lasted for thousands of years. This is how I've always done it and been successful. And yet you try it and it just misses. Doesn't bring you the same satisfaction and certainly not the same results. We tell you, dear ones, even physics has changed in the fifth dimension. In the third dimensional reality, you inhabited these bubbles of biology, this case of density, if you will. And it has its limitations like everything. Your eyes can only see between a very small range of perception that you call visible light. And yet the electromagnetic spectrum itself is huge in comparison to what you can perceive. Your ears can only hear certain ranges. You're aware that there are animals on your planet that you can hear far beyond what your ranges are that can see things you cannot see. We tell you in the fifth dimension, all of that is shifting. Even your dense physical body is starting to gain new attributes as you start to move toward light body. And you're going to see that many of your own senses, including the three that you know nothing about, are going to start to grow and become very prevalent on your planet. This takes courage, because change is not easy for humans. It is something that people wrestle against. Your whole idea of success is about status quo. And yet we tell you there's so much moving now. Hang on to the ride and enjoy every moment of it. There are so many wonderful things taking place once you ground your experience firmly in the fifth dimensional reality. And you'll find that certain things don't work the same. There's many new attributes of the fifth dimension, which you're just learning about. You may have known about them before, but now they're becoming critical for many of your experiences. One of them, we'll give you an example, is judgment. It was very important for you to judge things in the third dimension. You judge this is good and this is bad. This is right and this is wrong. This is up, this is down, this is fear, this is love. But those never did exist. There is no black and white, dear ones. It's all shades of gray. And yet we tell you now it's becoming more important to replace that judgment with discernment. Discernment is the art of finding that which adds to you in that moment. Now, when you find something that works for you, we ask you to hold it and open your heart and bring it in and call it yours. But don't call something else bad. Because the moment you do, it becomes a judgment, and you attach yourself to that which you have judged. And it follows you around from that point forward, becoming part of your experience. What if you just took the best from everything? That is what we're telling you the fifth dimensional attributes open to. That's what adds to your being, allows you to be the conscious creators that all of you have always been. And now you're going to start seeing. Now you have the capabilities of seeing your reflection in a totally different way. Totally different opportunity for you to see who you truly are, why you came to earth in the first place, and where you're going. Wait until you see what's coming. We have very few words that can describe the attributes that are directly ahead. You have won the game that you were playing. You have evolved spirit in the ways that you have. And we tell you, dear ones, there are many games going on throughout the universe, throughout all that is, throughout the multiverse. But we also tell you that of all those games, you have more games going on, more types of planets that support life than you have numbers for here on planet Earth. And we tell you, dear ones, even with all that, you're leading the way. All eyes are on planet Earth during this transition. And we tell you there are many that have evolved technologically, there are many that have evolved spiritually, but no one has ever stepped consciously from one dimensional reality to the next, like you've just done. And that is a fascinating part for all of you to own. Now, yes, there is turmoil on planet Earth. Yes, there's a lot of changes going on. Yes, the pendulum is swinging rather rapidly in both directions. And we tell you that leads to human advancement. Do not judge it as good or bad. Do not judge it as right or wrong. But watch for the opportunities that all of you have to plant your light, to step into your passion, to anchor those fifth dimensional attributes that are here right now, to use time in a totally different way than you have before. You experience time in the third dimension as linear. In the fourth dimensional, it's circular. In the fifth dimension, it's a spiral. And they have different attributes. And we tell you the beautiful part about all of it is it repeats itself over and over and again. So that which you master is removed from that circular timeline. That which you can step into, that which you can find harmony with, you don't have to repeat. And now that you've stepped into this fifth dimensional reality, even though there is great separation on planet Earth, there is much turmoil, because, dear ones, when people get into fear, they step backwards in their own evolution. They step backwards in that which they have learned. They try the old ways one more time. And they fight desperately to make them work, even though they're not successful at it. And you're experiencing much of that throughout the globe right now. Do not judge it as bad. It is an indication that you have clearly moved into a fifth dimensional reality and are trying to settle the collective of the beautiful game that you call humanity. It is a wonder to see. And we tell you, all of you are moving back into light body. It's a slow process. What it means is that you can carry more of your own light, even in density. That you have more coming in and more going out. More capable of carrying the light which you had to separate to play this game of pretending to be human. And we tell you, dear ones, the excitement on this side of the veil is great. We cannot wait to get you home at some point and show you what you have accomplished already. Do not lose sight of that. And no matter where you are on the planet, no matter where you are on your own personal path, no matter where you are in all the collective, understand that you've already won the game. Now you're simply moving from one stage to the next. And we tell you the possibilities of creation for each of you, individually as well as collective, is much greater than you ever imagined. The new earth is beginning in many different ways. And it's right here, right now. Is it an earth you're going to travel with and be with for the next millennia? No, dear ones, that is not the plan. There's much going on right now. But we tell you, mastering every step of your path is what you're here to do right at this moment. Dare to transcend some of the challenges, some of the birthrights, some of the things that you've brought in from even other lifetimes that you've carried with you so that you could be here to master them now. Look at each one. Evaluate each one. And try to step forward and transcend them by looking at them with fifth dimensional attributes. You're playing a beautiful game. Oh yes, we know. Humans don't like that idea of playing the game because it means that's just a game and it's not serious. But we tell you, dear ones, as long as you're having fun, you're on your path. And that's sometimes what happens when people get way too serious, too focused on trying to create something that's not easily happening. And that is happening much at Earth. Dare to take a step back. Dare to smell the roses. Watch the sunset. Find the beauty in the flowers that are around you. Find the beauty even in the darkness that is around you. For it won't be long, dear ones, before you will savor every moment of that time. You look back at this as an incredible experience, an incredible opportunity. And you will remember even the harshest times as beautiful, as a beautiful human experience. As you step into the fifth dimension and you start anchoring yourselves in different ways, know that much of what you have perceived before will start uncovering itself. Your own range of perception, even your eyesight, your hearing, your ability to sense and feel magnetism, which is something very few of you know about, will start to grow even more than before. Your head experiences things as electrical. Your heart experiences things as magnetic. And we tell you they're actually part of the same wave. If you measure it this way, it is electrical. If you measure it this way, it is magnetic. Humanity in the third dimension has focused clearly on what you can focus here. You even differentiate yourselves from the animals because you can reason. And you think they cannot. Oh yes, they can. But now you're working with the heart energy. And it's not that you're going to shut this off, but there's a new balance coming. And that new balance is much more attainable in the fifth dimension than it ever was in the third. But it's also going to mean that you must balance many things about yourself, not just the head and the heart, but also the masculine and the feminine. And that is happening massively. Because of this step in the fifth dimension, the feminine is beginning to rise again. It's not going to rise to take over, because feminine power is not about force, it's about harmony. And that leaves room for everything. And whether you're carrying a masculine body or a feminine body, know that that can happen for each and every one of you right now, like never before. The greatest times on planet Earth are directly ahead, dear ones. Don't miss any of it. Enjoy every aspect that you're moving through. We also tell you that when you came to Earth, you divided yourselves into 11 rays. 11 different experiences of you, each one making different choices. There are times, dear ones, when you go to sleep at night and you have these very vivid dreams, but you're married to someone else, or you have different children, or you're in a different experience. Sometimes you literally move into another dimensional reality to experience some of that as your consciousness relaxes. Enjoy that. But we also tell you you've hidden your perfection in each one of these. And over here, you're really good at something that over here you're not. But the dimensional walls between those dimensions in the fifth dimension, the collective of the fifth dimension, are starting to fade. You're starting to feel emotions from other aspects of yourself that you've never felt before. The magnetic waves are coming through those walls right now. Don't take them too seriously, but celebrate them. And know that you're in a huge connection of unity consciousness. You are putting back together that which was separated to play the game in the third dimension. And you're doing it while you're walking, still in a dense physical body. Dear ones, that has never been done in any game, in any part of all that is before. This is new. And it is strictly a human experience on earth. And for that, we celebrate you, each and every one of you, for the incredible parts that you play, for that which you've brought from home to share on earth right now. The connections are outstanding, and each of you have a unique part of it. Play that well. Know that all of you are in this together. And with that, we leave you for the moment, knowing that we really never leave. We're always here, right over your shoulder. It is with the greatest of honor we greet you in these ways and ask you to treat each other with respect, nurture one another, and play well together. Espavo.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, well, it's a pleasure to have the group here and to be connecting through Steve this way. So, greetings. Have I spoken to you through others that I've been on this journey with?
Oh, dear one. When you finally pull back the veil and see the game that you have been playing, you'll find that over here you call it one thing and over here you call it another. And in truth, many times you are talking to parts of yourself. The magic mirror that is here for each of you. Now, some look through this mirror over here and they cannot see themselves, so they find a different mirror to look through. One is not right and one is not wrong. There is no single mirror that can reflect the spirit of any human. So yes, you have all been speaking to the same entity, and it is you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. So God is always in the background.
God is here right now in every one of you. And it's very confusing for humans to do that because you've had to look up to the gods, to honor, to pray to put them on a pedestal. We ask you, dear ones, to start spelling God with a little g. Start bringing them down to see that you, in fact, are God in your wholeness, not just a part, but each and every one of you have the full creativity of that. It's difficult to see because when you came here to play this game on earth, you divided yourself into 11 rays. You hid your perfection in each one of those. It's very challenging for you to see that you have a perfection in you. But that's what you're starting to see in the fifth dimension. Those walls are starting to diminish ever so slowly. Take that power. Do not use it to feed your ego, for that will not work. And the other challenging part about it is that you're not the only God. And living in harmony with those other gods is what you are learning in the fifth dimension.
Thank you very much. So could it be true, or could there be any truth in saying that if I'm speaking to what I use the human word as God, and Steve uses the word the group, and we're saying here that there's no real separation in a sense, is there gods above gods?
There is only one connection. Everyone looks for the highest potential. Everyone looks for separation. Everyone looks to quantify themselves. We'll tell you an interesting story, dear ones, because you look for this ladder of human advancement, and you think that you must climb that ladder to reach the top in order to advance to the next level. And what we actually tell you is that when everyone takes their position on the different rungs of the ladder, is when the whole ladder evolves. And that's what's happening. So it's difficult, and we ask you to move out of duality, to try and see the highest of the high, but to see the highest within each of you right now, because that is where it is. Now, is there different levels of what you would call God? Yes, of course there are. And there are different games going on throughout the universe that attach and connect with many of those different levels. To everything, there is a season. To everything, there is a harmony. And the harmony that you have here can tell you that you can find it all within yourselves. That's difficult for humans to deal with because they have an ego they must deal with. The ego tells you you are separate from each other. And the ego has you measure yourself against others. And you'll learn not to do that. You'll learn to take the highest potential in each and every moment and grab it as your own. Claim it as your power.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, that's great. We talked about a time of great change right now with many people. And before we get there, let's just talk about the game. You keep talking about this is a game. So we create our reality. Is there? Could you go down that road that we've created this reality?
You are conscious creators in every moment. You use something called entrainment, which you know very little about here. It is mentioned in your physics and some of your mathematics. But entrainment is taking your vibration and pushing it out into a world and creating something that matches your vibration. Each of you do it. You're not aware of it. It has been very unconscious on planet Earth. But every thought you have turns into a vibration that emits from your being and carries out into the universe in front of you, into the timeline in front of you, and arranges everything just before you open your eyes, just before you pick up the phone, just before you turn the doorknob. And a world is there that matches what you have sent out. So you are consciously creating. Now, it has been necessary because of carrying the ego in the third dimension, the way that you have, it's been necessary to hide some of that from you, which you yourselves did. You set about processes where you could not see your magnificence. Even today, when you look in the mirror, your attention goes to your flaws, not your perfection. And that is by nature in the third dimension. In the fifth dimension, you're learning otherwise. But it also takes a little while for you to ground that new energy in the fifth dimension. So look for that beauty. Look for those connections. And you'll start understanding that you have literally created everything right in front of you. And it is perfect. No matter where you are on your path, no matter what mistakes you think you have made, it is absolutely perfect for where you want it to be.
Thank you. So this is a game. This is a game. Why have we created this game for?
The game is basically to evolve. You can say it is to evolve God. You can say it is to evolve spirit. You can say it is for the evolution of everything. And it is. Because that is the process of all things in the universe. To evolve to the next level. To reach a higher vibrational state than when you started the game. Now, we call it a game for the very simple reason that we see all the games that are going on throughout what you call all that is. You used to call it the universe, and now your sciences are calling it the multiverse because they're becoming aware of multidimensionality. So we don't use those words in the same way. But throughout everything that exists everywhere, there are so many games going on. And over here, you're evolving through these set of difficulties that are absolutely creating circumstances for you to learn specific things. And over here, you're learning a whole different area. You're working with technologies that are far beyond what you know on Earth. And over here, you work with emotions only. And there are so many different games that have helped all that is move to the next level. And nowhere has anyone moved from one level of collective dimensionality to the next, like you have here on Earth. Now, we also tell you there's much turmoil. There's a lot of separation going on here. There's a lot of people stepping backwards in their evolution, trying on the old ways, trying to get the third dimensional reality and the third dimensional attributes to work in the fifth dimension. And for a time, it's going to continue. But that's why you're here. Many of you have carried that energy very quietly to be here, to be part of a critical mass of change. Does it mean you must take a sign and stand on a street corner and shout your truth louder than anyone else? No, it does not, dear one. Even if you never speak it to anyone, you are carrying that vibration deep within you. And that's part of the reason that so many of you are here right now, witnessing what is taking place, even though it seems to be somewhat out of control for many of you. Know that you're in the right place at the right time. And we honor you for it.
Whose game is it?
All that is. If you were to try and encapsulate everything that exists everywhere, you would use the word God. And that's what we do. But we also tell you, you are that as well. Dear ones, would it surprise you to know that you were there around planet Earth when it was cooling? You were planning the possibilities of having an incarnation there at some point. You were working with the Earth herself in her process of evolution so that she could actually form an ionosphere and create oxygen and have a place to grow even these dense physical bodies that you now inhabit. At that time, you did not carry physical bodies. You were in what you call light body today. And many of you have taken that and called that the angelic realm. The angels that don't carry physical bodies but are somehow separate from the whole, somehow have individual incarnations. And that is returning to each of you and to many of you in this lifetime.
So, when you talk about we've moved to the fifth dimension, or we're moving to the fifth dimension. Why don't we shift dimensions all the time anyway?
Yes, you're constantly changing and trying on different things. And please understand, when we use that word dimensionality, we use it in two different ways. The individual dimensionality, which is the 11 different expressions of dimensions. And quite often you shift between one and the other. Sometimes you will channel another part of yourself. Literally take that energy on and jump into a little bit of your perfection over here. So many times you are shifting in that multidimensional state. Now, as far as the collective of dimensionality, that is determined by the collective vibration of all humans on planet Earth in density, in all dimensions of time and space. And that dimensionality has to do with how high the vibration can maintain itself. You have been fluctuating back and forth. Sometimes you move, sometimes you shift in different ways and move between the dimensions. But for the most part, you've been in the third dimension for a very long time. And that third dimensional reality is what you call home. Have you noticed everything has shifted? Pretty much everything has changed. Even the way that your successes have worked before somehow seem to be missing the mark now. Somehow not quite working the same. You've stepped into the fifth dimensional reality. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. This has caused much challenge and panic on your planet, especially those who believe they were in charge. And there are many that believe they can show people what they should think. There are many that believe that they can control the way that the movement goes, not only in politics, but in general heart energy of planet Earth. And they're trying that very desperately right now. And we tell you, to some degree, there's a little bit of success with that. But everything is now moved into the fifth dimension. And as everybody awakens to the new attributes and the new abilities that they have, they'll start creating their own reality and not be susceptible to that energy anymore. And that is taking place now as we speak. The fourth dimension imprinted you with all new energy. You're learning how to use that energy. You're learning how to ground those new attributes. Many of you believe that if you close your eyes, you can see into other dimensions of time and space, and we tell you that is absolutely true. And yet very few of you still try it. And when you do see something out of the corner of your eye, out of the peripheral vision, you said, oh, my brain just made that up, and you convince yourself because it does not seem to fit into your third dimensional reality. You're going to be seeing things that you can't imagine. Let your imagination run wild. Let your experience be guided by spirit. Connect with your own heart of your spirit, for it knows the way home. It knows the truth deep within. And the other aspect we tell you that is very confusing is that humans have learned belief systems. We call those BS. For the very simple reason that a belief system means that if you believe in this, it means that you must carry all these other beliefs with it. Choose only that which resonates with your heart and leave the rest without judgment. Do not call it good or bad. Do not think because you believe in this that you must believe in all these other things and how and why and all the other aspects of it. Just take the highest vibration. In the fifth dimension, you can do that. Because those belief systems are getting people in a lot of difficulty right now. They're trying to live out that which they have been taught many times. Are you aware, dear ones, that most people that have a religion were born into that religion? And they fight desperately to prove that that is the only religion or the right religion or the correct one. What if they were all blended together as one? What if you started to take just the highest potentials from each aspect of that and leave the rest? Now you're into fifth dimensional reality. That takes courage. And there will be many that fight you for that. But that is also filling yourself full of light in a new way. Stepping into the light body experience.
Thank you. And I want to move away from this just a moment, but it seems to be the focus here just right now. So I've had that come through from other channelers that as we progress our decisions more to love, and even as we are master manifestors and we are creating different realities, we're constantly shifting between different dimensions. And the idea that we're only kind of massively shifting towards one, is there like if we had bubbles, is there like one bigger overarching bubble, which is the main mass reality, and then there's the individual realities that we create?
Well, yes, it is possible for many to live in higher dimensional realities. The challenge that humans get into here is that you see things because of going through the second dimension and gaining the attributes of duality, of contrast, that you believe that one is better than the other. They're not. They're only different. Now, just because you've worked to move out of the third dimensional reality does not mean the third dimensionality was bad, or that the fifth dimension is somehow even better than the third. And that is a confusion that many take because of moving through that second dimensional reality. But the fact that you have moved at all in the collective, and that is the large bubble. Now, it does not mean that other people are not moving into other areas. We do tell you that the dimensional realities after this point, the numbers change, and it's very difficult to measure them in the same way that you have, moving through the even-numbered ones to land in the odd ones. Much changes after this point. But yet, to reach out and to try and label where you are, and that one is advanced than the other, there's always those that come to Earth to introduce a higher reality, that live basically a higher dimensional reality. Some of them you have called ascended masters. Many of the ascended masters that have come to planet Earth have been living in a fifth dimensional reality while you were in the third. And therefore, they kept opening the door. They kept bringing you up. They kept opening and introducing fifth dimensional ideas, concepts of empowerment that live in the fifth dimension. And that has literally moved you into it. So yes, there are many who live in different dimensional realities, many who have come to plant seeds even higher than where you are. But also celebrate where you are, dear ones, and ground where you are, because it is incredible and there's so much to learn here. Even your physics is going to change. Some of you will think that you're discovering new things. Much of what you call space, which has been so mysterious to you, is starting to be unveiled. You're starting to see that you're not only not alone, but literally you're like much more than you are separate. There's much diversity out there with the different games that we play. And we tell you, you're also very much alike in many ways. And that is going to start to uncover itself to you. You're going to be very busy right where you are. So enjoy the other dimensional realities that you experience. And for those of you who've stepped into higher realms, it sometimes is very lonely there. Honor them. Know that they hold the door open. They plant the seeds for what is to come. But don't attach yourself by thinking one is better than the other. Know that you're perfect right where you are right now.
It's almost like others have said to me about the idea that this is a holographic projection, that this is some sort of game, virtual reality. You've said the same words, but it is very real at the same time, isn't it?
It is very real and very serious, yes. But you knew that when you took off your wings and came here to play. You knew that when you stood in line to take your place. A very interesting thing happened only recently. We tell you, dear ones, that the planet had the opportunity to move, to make these big shifts that it's making right now. And at home, when you are not separate from each other, there was a long line that formed, basically, to help bring you into this planet. Many that stood in line to take an incarnation here, to bring something from home, to be a part of it, because many of you have been here time and time again, investing in planet Earth and all of what you call humanity, this beautiful game that you're playing. But an interesting thing happened in that line. Since you are not separate from each other, you feel everything from every other one. You're in unity consciousness, in harmony. And the person at the beginning of the line turned around and looked at the person right behind them. And they said, you know, you have more to offer here than I do. You have more that you can bring in. Why don't you step forward and I'll step back one? Because you're not burdened with the egos there. And so it happened that a huge reshuffling of the line took place. And the highest potential of each one moved to the front. And here you are. You are the highest potentials, or you would not be here right now. Do not lose sight of that. You brought something very important from home. Many of you have felt like you could not be heard here, that you were living a different world. People didn't understand you, that you didn't fit into your family, that you were so empathic that you had to hide. Let me tell you, you brought those gifts for a reason. All of you will have the opportunities to use them very soon. Step forward. Know that you'll be tapped on the shoulder. When you do, when you feel that channel on your shoulder, waiting to be heard, give it voice. And play the game of pretending to be a human.
So right now, there are different aspects of Steve out there in other realities, having different experiences in different parallel universes. Would there be any truth in that?
Yes. Some even on what you would call the same time and space. Although you'll never see each other. You're magnetically separated. But yes, you're having different experiences of the same spirit, the same unique core personality. You've chosen different attributes. Generally, you are the same sex. Not always, because sometimes there are things to be learned by being different. But you all incarnate at exactly the same moment. You're born into this bubbles of biology at the same moment. And you all must die at the same moment. You all must leave at exactly the same time. That is part of the reason that sometimes it is difficult for a human to leave and walk out of the body. You must be aligned multidimensionally as well, so that all can have the same experience. So there are at least 11. And we give you that illustration because it's easy for you to understand. In truth, there's infinite expressions of that, multiples of 12. But it's difficult for humans to even grasp the concept of infinity. So we give you the illusion of 11. Different expressions of the same spirit. Different reflections of your soul.
How would we know that this is not a life review? I mean, not that it really matters, but I guess the reason I ask something as crazy as that is I have the feeling sometimes that we've done this before, that in some different way we've been here before and had this conversation before, and this is kind of deja vu a little bit. Not that I can prove it. My human mind can't even cope with why that is, but the idea that I've been tossing around is this some sort of collective life review? But would it even matter if it was?
We'll put it in a slightly different explanation. You live in circular time, meaning simply that you have the illusion of linear time in the third dimension. That is where you have past, present, and future. 2 of those are only memories. The past is only a memory and the future is only potential. The only one that you truly have is this now moment, right now. Now, in the 4th dimension, time is circular. Because what happens is you have opportunities to repeat things over and over again. Have you known people who have made similar mistakes in their lives in slightly different ways over and over again until they master it? That is true, and that happens many times in multiples of 7. Where you repeat yourself over and over and over again. And that gives you many times the case of deja vu, of thinking you have been here before and remembering it feels so incredibly familiar. Now in the 5th dimension, time is a combination of both of those. It is a spiral, moving forward, carrying the linear aspects and also carrying the circular aspects. But the same is true with the circle because everything comes around again. Everything has the opportunity of perfection, of mastery. Once you master it, it moves out of your experience altogether. You no longer need that resistance in that way to learn anything. And it moves forward, and that's what you're starting to do a huge amount of right now. Besides that, we also tell you that you're at a very critical time on planet Earth. This is a huge moment for everything. And we told you all eyes are upon planet Earth. Let us also tell you that many of you have traveled backwards in time to be here right now. To plant something. Sometimes as little as 5 words. To watch them ripple forward in time to start changing things, to have a different outcome. To start working with things in a different way. And yes, your memories had to be erased in order to play the game, and yet everything is somewhat familiar, and you have this sense that no matter where you are, everything's going to be all right. That we welcome you to. As you move forward, you will understand more about time travel. You will understand more about multidimensionality and being able to open that up and travel between the dimensions as well as time. You'll see that it's all connected as one. For now, we will simply tell you the main secret. It is done at a right angle, a 90-degree turn. What we have termed as the orthogonal matrix. You'll be learning much more about that as you move forward, as you anchor the fifth dimension in all of your reality. And that creates the sense of déjà vu and also a deep inner peace. Enjoy it.
Well, that's pretty incredible. So there's the potential that, what if we've come from the future? That, well, wouldn't it mean when we enter into the space that you're connecting through to Steve with, when we connect to your space, there is no time by my understanding. You don't exist in time?
The time is all in the now moment. There are the collective dimensional realities. First is unity. The first dimension is unity. Everything is connected. There is no sense of time. You can have everything in the now moment. What you call past, present, and future is all here as a big circle. It can be accessed at different points at any time. So here, especially, time travel is not only possible, it is the norm. Now, we do not call it time travel, obviously, because only by going through the second dimension and gaining those attributes of contrast, polarity, duality, do you lay out time as past, present, and future. You experience time at 1 second moment at a time. We experience it now all at once. That's part of the reason it's been so challenging for humans to hear our words. You understand how many channelers you have on the planet at this moment. It's growing day by day. Not because there's more voices to be heard, but because now you can start to hear the message. You can hear things now and understand things you could not understand only a short time ago. You have evolved into a whole new level. You're starting to grasp universal time.
Wait a minute. So...
Oh, the brain is moving now. We love it.
So, hang on. We're grasping things that we've never grasped before. And if time travel's just a word, it's not how it works, it's just a human word for the understanding of what you're trying to comprehend here right now. If we're coming back to this moment now, for example, because we want to change the future, again, just human words, then obviously we come back into this present moment with more information. We come back with future information embedded within us. And in that future information, that would have been at a time when this information would have been more common knowledge.
Oh, you are thinking like a human. We love it. You're putting it out in linear time. Let us give you another slight example that might help you to understand. You're moving from unity consciousness where everything is one in that moment. You are connected to everything, every blade of grass, every rock, every tree, every heart. There's no war here. You're connected. You've had to play this game of pretending to be separate, so you move through these dimensional realities. As you move further, even in the fifth dimension and beyond, you start gaining unity consciousness again. You start moving back toward that instead of further away. As such, you don't even call it time travel. It becomes a natural process of playing the game in a different way. Very difficult to put into words that humans can understand because you perceive things in a certain aspect.
Now that makes sense. You're playing the game in a different way. So if I wanted to, for whatever reason, if I wanted to choose to go back to even a further timeline than this, that was going to be helpful in some way, to be impactful into my future, we can go even further back as well.
And you do. The challenge about it is that you don't have a memory of it, so it becomes challenging. And you also believe that you carry back your knowledge. You don't. you carry back your vibration. You carry back your heart energy and you plant it there through the process called entrainment.
So I'm carrying back my heart energy to another time and reliving that life in a completely different way with newer heart energy than what was available at that time to further all my lives and the lives of people around me in future lives.
Over and over and over, yes.
So this life right now, let's just bring it back to present moment. There's something very important about this timeline right now.
Yes.
How many souls have traveled back into this past timeline now with a more open heart space? Is that a number? Is that beyond our imagination? Just how many have?
We can tell you that you have reached a critical mass with that number. It is only slightly over 1 million souls on the planet right now that have done that. So it is a fairly small number of the 7+ billion souls that are here right now. But of that 1 million, you are of great joy. You have done this before. There's a select group of spirits which have traveled throughout the universe to be in certain places at certain times to make a critical mass difference. We call them the family of E. And you are here in numbers of roughly 1 million souls right now. Enough to make a difference.
Why would we choose to come back to this particular time frame right now in those type of numbers? Forgetting any of the time frame, because I'm just trying to stay here now. What's important about this one?
This is the movement that you've made between the third and the fifth dimension. If it's possible for you to move from one to the other, and keep in mind, this has never been done anywhere before. This is new. Now, if you move a game from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, we tell you there is great opportunity for everything to come completely apart. For people to move into such fear over that. You might think it's wonderful to step into these new attributes, but in truth, it changes the base game that you are playing on and causes great fear. If everyone falls into fear, you literally can come apart at the seams. And instead of winning the game, you basically fall into oblivion. And we tell you, many of you have landed here right now to help ground this energy, to help find your truth. Let people know it's all right, to hold the door open for those who are even afraid and experience that fear.
So in this time right now, there's a possibility that we could go either way with the way mankind's going right now. We can either go in a more loving, unity consciousness way where we're coming from a oneness, or we could destroy ourselves in ways that we can't understand just right now.
It is difficult for you to understand, but you have already done both of those.
What timeline have I come back from? Which one? Where we made it or we didn't make it?
we love the connections. You want the contrast and the duality of which one am I. I'll tell you, dear ones, there are the highest potentials for beings to ground this light this time around in a different way. And although we tell you that different outcomes happen in different dimensional realities, different choices happen in that way as well. But you have the opportunity to bring this game to a huge conclusion, to a place that has never been reached before anywhere. And that is new. And that is why so many of you have incarnated in this time frame. Many of you have traveled backwards in time, even to have a full life since birth, to be here at this moment. And the change is right in front of you. You're seeing it in front of you. You're seeing it play out in many different ways, and there's much to go. There's events directly ahead that will shift this earth rather quickly.
But we're not reliving it the same way.
That's correct.
It's changed.
That's correct. Just the weight of your being and your vibration being here has already shifted it. So it's playing out in that circle, but the spiral moves forward. And that is beautiful, because you're able to literally master many of those attributes and those challenges that you've seen before. You know what not to do, basically. And that's magical.
How do we know not what to do with no remembrance of what may have
You know
occurred?
it in your heart. Again, you're not bringing back the thoughts, you're bringing back the heart energy. So it's not about the memory of, I must take this step or that, but you know what's right in your heart and what's wrong in your heart. And that's where you make your choices. That's where you make your discernment instead of judgments. And that'll make the difference.
But what about those who don't seem to be coming from a very loving heart space in their decisions?
Those are called fear.
So those coming from fear, is it their first time of having this particular...
Some? Absolutely. There are many here that are not from the family of E who have not done this before, who've not traveled backwards in time, and many who are simply in desperation. Please, we ask you not to judge them. Do not think that you are higher or lower than them. That puts you back into a third dimensional reality. But simply make that space. Also, do not judge them for not taking a path that you would take, because it is important to honor and maintain the free choice in your game. It is what based everything from this point forward. But we do ask you to be there, your highest potential, to go through your own experiences and then hold the door open for those that follow, that wish to follow that path in some way, and empower each other. That's the most important part.
Why this information now about coming back in time potentially? I mean, why do we need to know that?
The earth is beginning to go through a cycle. To everything there is a season. You live in finiteness. Everything has a beginning, everything has an end. Your cycle on planet Earth is coming to an end. And as such, you're evolving at an incredible pace. You're literally moving. And you're not the only ones that have done this. This has even been done before on planet Earth. We can point to several races that seemingly disappeared for no reason. The Anasazi, the Aztecs in some ways, the Lemurians. We tell you Lemuria did sink, the landmass did sink, but the Lemurians were not on it. They ascended before that happened. Many beings learned to ascend in their process, to step into light body and change dimensions as a group of beings. You're learning to do that with all of planet Earth. Very magical. The possibilities are endless. Do not think this is a sad time. Do not mourn the Earth. She's not dying. It's simply that she will not be able to support life in the way that you currently know it. There are many things that are taking place with that as she comes to a new cycle within herself. But we tell you, spirits never die. They only change form. And that magic can happen consciously.
Talking about keeping that theme of this very special time then, what's one thing people watching this can do then that's going to be beneficial for themselves and others? What's the one thing that we're missing?
The biggest challenge is that with so much upheaval on planet Earth, with so much change, with so many people stepping back in their own belief systems to try old ways, to try the ways of force versus the ways of harmony. The biggest challenge about that is people can get into judgment. They can choose one is right and one is wrong. And we know it sounds incredibly simple, but what if you were to love them unconditionally, without them thinking the same way that you are? What if you were to move back into unity consciousness? What if you could feel every other being on planet Earth, every other heart? We tell you, dear ones, if only a small percentage of you could do that, war could not exist on this planet. You would all understand you were bombing yourselves. It would not happen. Set the tone for that within each of you. And instead of looking at something and saying it is right or wrong, this is good or bad, I'm on this side or that side, start looking at the ways that you are alike instead of the ways you are separate. Start moving back into that unity understanding and living through that heart connected to each other being. That sets the stage for the grounding of the fifth dimension and for everyone to move into the light body.
So when we say, rather than change the world, it's change ourselves.
There you go.
And when we say, mention the word Donald Trump, or any other leader right now that seems to be causing disruption on this planet, or not for the best interest of anyone, are these people playing a magnificent role?
The Trump effect on planet Earth is huge. But it's not just the Trump effect. Please understand this is happening in many different areas. It's happening in many different governments. It's playing out in different ways. This is not the Me Too movement. This is the Me First movement. This is moving out of holding the door open for others to holding the door open only for yourself. This is basically a movement towards selfishness. And it's returned. Why has it returned in such many places throughout the planet? Because people are in fear, dear ones. You suddenly find yourself not working in an area that you used to work really, really well. All the things that used to work don't work anymore. You've stepped into the fifth dimension. So the first thing you do is move back into, there must be all these people. This is what's wrong. I need to take care of me first. Well, we tell you, dear ones, everyone needs to take care of themselves first. You have a responsibility to do that. But when you cut yourself off from everyone else, it becomes selfish instead of self-first. And that movement has found political base throughout many places throughout the world. Have you noticed that also many people have stepped back in their connection to others? That actually race inequality has found itself rampant again on planet Earth? There are people actually that are in places of office that believe in slavery, that literally would bring that back if they could, because they felt that that was successful in those days. Old third dimensional ideas that people are trying back on, trying to very desperately to push. Now, in the long run, it's going to work out rather well because you work on this pendulum of human advancement. And when the pendulum is pulled back so far, when it swings forward, it jumps the track and starts anew. And that's what's happening. It's being pulled back a tremendous amount. You've had it happen several times on your planet. We tell you, Hitler's in heaven. You never thought we'd say that, because humans have judgments about the things that he did. And yet, humanity learned from that. Everyone was able to move forward a little bit. Well, we ask you to do the same thing. Choose that which you do not resonate with. Choose that which is not in harmony with each other. And step forward into it. Let your voice be heard. Not to be the loudest, but to be there in harmony. And to carry that heart energy to make that critical mass step forward. And we tell you, as difficult as these times are for people to watch, they will be thought of as huge human advancements. Because you're about to take those steps forward. Watch what happens.
There are those, or maybe I've said to myself as well, that if I don't do it for myself, then there's no, I can't just do it for others. I've got to do it for myself. Is that kind of contradictory to what you're saying?
No, that's where it must be. People must work within themselves first, because that's how you change the world. One heart at a time. You change yourself. Now, when you see things out there that are completely against what you believe in, your vibration sends it out. And yes, there is a mismatch of vibrations there. But ultimately, love wins. Ultimately, unity consciousness returns. Keep that in mind. You've already stepped in the fifth dimension. You're just wrestling with the attributes of it, how it's going to work, trying on the old ways, trying the force versus harmony. That's why you're also seeing a huge rise in the feminine power and the feminine energy on planet Earth, because the feminine uses harmony, not force. And that is starting to return in a very big way. Watch what happens even in your politics over the next 2 years. You'll see a reckoning of energies that will start to change things. You'll also see that there are very few people behind much of this energy that have been able to send out waves of ripples of fear, of me first movement. And that will start to change as well. But that happens one heart at a time. So yes, each one must take care of themselves. The keeper traveled for many years on airplanes. We love to give the illustration because it makes sense. If the airplane ever has a problem, they tell you these oxygen masks will fall. And if you're traveling with a small child or anyone else who needs assistance, please put on your oxygen mask first. It does not mean you cannot help others, but it means you must take care of yourself first. And that is not selfish. That is self first. That's a huge difference.
That's such a beautiful analogy. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, I just hope I've done you justice here with the information coming through. I feel like there's just an infinite number of questions I could ask you, but we're limited by this human time aspect right now.
We have opened the door to potentials. That's all we ever ask for. Take it from here. Follow your path. Know that you are right on target. And we thank you for being who you are and stepping into your power. Espavo.
Guru Brahma Guru